Sarah's champagne glass slipped from her trembling fingers, shattering against the marble floor of the reception hall. The sound cut through the music and laughter like a gunshot. Her phone screen glowed in her hand, displaying a text message that made her blood run cold. Emergency at Singapore office. Just boarded the 14-hour flight. I'm so sorry I'll miss our first dance. I love you, wife. Marcus. But that was impossible. She'd been dancing with Marcus just 3 minutes ago. His hands had been on her waist. His lips had brushed her ear as he whispered how beautiful she looked in her wedding dress. Sarah's head snapped up. Across the crowded ballroom, through the sea of guests in expensive suits and designer gowns, she saw him, her husband. Marcus Miller stood near the champagne tower in his custom tuxedo, laughing at something her uncle was saying. As if sensing her stare, he turned. Their eyes locked across the room. He smiled. Then he winked. Not the warm, loving wink she'd come to know over the past 6 months. This was different, colder, sharper, like a predator acknowledging its prey. Sarah's knees buckled, the room tilted sideways. Because in that single moment, she understood with absolute crushing certainty that the man she'd just married, the man whose ring now sat on her finger, the man who was legally her husband in the eyes of God and the state of New York, wasn't Marcus Miller at all. She'd married his twin brother, Oliver. 6 months earlier, Sarah's life had been completely different. She was 28 years old, working 70-hour weeks as a curator at a struggling art gallery in Manhattan, surviving on instant ramen and black coffee, wondering if she'd made a terrible mistake getting a master's degree in art history. Her student loans felt like a noose around her neck, tightening a little more each month. The charity gala changed everything. Her boss had forced her to attend, hoping she'd schmooze with wealthy donors. Sarah had been standing alone by the hors d'oeuvres table, feeling out of place in her borrowed dress, when a voice behind her said, "You look like you'd rather be anywhere else." She'd turned to find the most handsome man she'd ever seen, tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair, and eyes that seemed to see right through her carefully constructed professional smile. He wore his tuxedo like it was a second skin, comfortable in a way that spoke of old money and private schools. "That obvious?" she'd replied, only to someone who feels the same way. He'd extended his hand. Marcus Miller. She'd recognized the name immediately. Everyone in New York knew Marcus Miller. Tech billionaire, self-made. Built his first company at 23 and sold it for $300 million by 25. Now at 32, he ran Miller Industries, a venture capital firm worth billions. What followed was something out of a fairy tale. Marcus pursued her relentlessly. Private jet to Paris for the weekend. Front row seats at Fashion Week. A casual Tuesday dinner at a restaurant with a 6-month waiting list. He sent flowers to her tiny apartment every morning. He remembered everything she said, asked about her dreams, actually listened to her answers. "You're different," he'd told her one night, overlooking the city from his penthouse terrace. "Everyone else wants something from me. You just want to talk about art and philosophy and whether dogs dream." "Do you think they do?" she'd asked. "Dream, I mean. I think anyone capable of love is capable of dreaming." He'd taken her hand. "I'm dreaming right now." It was corny and perfect and exactly what her lonely heart needed to hear. Her best friend Emma had been skeptical. "6 months, Sarah? You've known him for 6 months and he's already proposing?" "When you know," Sarah had insisted, admiring the enormous diamond on her finger. "But what do you actually know about him? About his family? His past?" "I know he makes me feel seen. I know he treats me like I matter. Isn't that enough?" Emma had hugged her, but said quietly, "I hope so, sweetie. I really hope so." Marcus had mentioned his twin brother exactly twice. The first time was casual, almost throwaway. "I have a twin, actually, Oliver. We don't talk." "Why not?" Sarah had asked. His jaw had tightened. "Business disagreement. It's complicated." The second time, he'd been more forthcoming. They'd been in bed, comfortable in the drowsy intimacy of early morning. "Oliver and I started my first company together," Marcus had said, staring at the ceiling. He put up the initial investment, but he wanted control of everything, every decision, every hire, every dollar spent. It wasn't a partnership, it was a dictatorship. When I tried to buy him out, he fought me, said I was betraying him, betraying family. That sounds awful. The worst part is that he was right about some things. I was young and arrogant. I made mistakes, but I couldn't live under his thumb. Marcus had turned to face her. We haven't spoken in 5 years. He lives in Hong Kong now, I think. It's better this way. Sarah had kissed his shoulder. I'm sorry you lost your brother. I didn't lose him. I chose my freedom. But something in his voice had sounded uncertain, almost guilty. She never met Oliver, never saw a photograph. Marcus kept no family pictures in his penthouse, no childhood memories on display. It should have been a red flag, but Sarah was too in love to notice. The wedding was planned in 8 weeks. Marcus wanted something big, impressive, a statement. Sarah would have preferred something smaller, but she'd convinced herself it didn't matter. The marriage was what counted, not the ceremony. The morning of the wedding, Sarah woke up in her hotel suite surrounded by bridesmaids and makeup artists and the controlled chaos of preparation. She'd tried calling Marcus, wanting to hear his voice before they promised forever to each other, but his phone went straight to voicemail. Bad luck to talk to the groom before the ceremony, her mother had said, adjusting Sarah's veil. The ceremony itself was beautiful. The estate Marcus had rented was stunning. All manicured gardens and string quartets and flowers that cost more than Sarah's annual salary. When she walked down the aisle, Marcus was waiting at the altar, looking devastating in his custom tuxedo. But something felt off. His smile was different, tighter. His eyes tracked her with an intensity that felt more possessive than loving. When he took her hands, his grip was too firm, almost painful. You look perfect, he'd whispered. Not beautiful, not stunning. Perfect. Like she was an object to be acquired. Sarah had pushed the thought away. Wedding day nerves, that's all. During the vows, his voice had been steady, controlled, while hers shook with emotion. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Marcus had kissed her deeply, almost aggressively, his hand tight on the back of her neck. The guests had cheered. The reception was a blur of congratulations and champagne, and the feeling that something was wrong, but not being able to identify what. Marcus stayed close, too close, his hand always on her back or her waist or her arm, claiming, marking. You're being awfully clingy, she'd teased, trying to lighten the mood. Can you blame me? You're mine now. The way he'd said it had made her skin prickle. Then she'd excused herself to the bathroom, checked her phone, and saw the text from Marcus, the real Marcus, the one currently on a plane over the Pacific Ocean. Now, standing in the reception hall with broken glass at her feet and her entire world crumbling, Sarah forced herself to move. She walked through the crowd on autopilot, smiling mechanically at guests, until she reached him. We need to talk, she said quietly. Now. Oliver, because it was Oliver, she knew it with bone-deep certainty, smiled at her uncle. Excuse us, my bride wants a private moment. The way he said, my bride, made her stomach turn. He took her arm and guided her through the French doors onto a private terrace. The moment they were alone, Sarah ripped her arm away. Who the hell are you? He laughed. Actually laughed. You know who I am, Sarah. Where's Marcus? Where's my husband? On a plane, probably landing in a few hours, confused about why he's so groggy, wondering why he missed his own wedding. Oliver leaned against the balustrade, utterly relaxed. I put a little something in his morning coffee, nothing permanent, just enough to make sure he slept through his flight and missed the ceremony. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. You drugged him. I prefer to think of it as temporary sedation. This is insane. This is illegal. I'm calling the police right now. And tell them what? Oliver's voice turned sharp. That you married the wrong twin? That you couldn't tell the difference between your fiancé and his identical brother? How embarrassing for you. The marriage isn't valid. It's fraud. The marriage is completely legal. I signed the license as Marcus Miller, which I am technically. We share a name, a face, a birthday. Good luck proving otherwise. He stepped closer. Besides, you don't want to call the police. Watch me. Because if you do, Marcus loses everything. Oliver pulled out his phone, showed her a banking app with millions of dollars displayed. I have access to all his accounts. Fingerprint recognition doesn't work well when you have identical prints. Neither does facial recognition. I've been slowly siphoning money for weeks. One phone call from me, and I transfer every dollar to offshore accounts Marcus will never find. Sarah felt like she was drowning. Why? Why would you do this? Because he took everything from me. Oliver's mask cracked for the first time, rage flooding through. I funded his dream. I believed in him when no one else did. And the second he had success, he cut me out, treated me like I was nothing, like I didn't matter. So you steal his life? Steal his wife? I'm taking what's mine, what was always mine. He composed himself, the cold smile returning. Here's what's going to happen, Sarah. You're going to go back to that reception. You're going to smile and dance and cut the cake. You're going to be the perfect bride. And tonight, you're coming home with me to Marcus's penthouse. Absolutely not. Then I destroy him. One transfer. That's all it takes. His company collapses. His investors lose everything. Thousands of employees lose their jobs. All because you couldn't play along. Oliver tilted his head. Can you live with that? Can you sleep at night knowing you ruined all those lives? Sarah's mind raced. She needed time. Time to think, to plan, to find a way out. How long? I'm sorry. How long do I have to pretend? Until I've taken everything, every dollar, every asset, every shred of reputation he has. Then you can have what's left of him. Oliver reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Sarah flinched. Don't worry, I'll be a good husband. Better than Marcus, probably. I'm more ambitious, more driven. You're insane. I'm focused. He offered his arm. Shall we return to our guests? We have a first dance to perform. Sarah felt the trap closing around her. If she exposed him now, Marcus would be destroyed. If she played along, she was voluntarily entering a nightmare. But she needed time. Time to contact Marcus, to find help, to figure out a plan. Fine, she said, her voice hollow. But this isn't over. Oh, sweetheart. Oliver's smile was cruel. It's only just beginning. The next 3 weeks were the worst of Sarah's life. Oliver moved into Marcus's penthouse with her, sleeping in Marcus's bed, wearing Marcus's clothes, living Marcus's life with the ease of someone who'd been studying for this role for years. In public, he was charming. Thus he perfect newlywed husband. He held her hand at dinner parties, introduced her to business associates, played the part flawlessly. In private, he was a stranger wearing her fiancé's face. He monitored her phone, installed tracking apps, controlled who she could see and when. Her friends started to worry. Emma called constantly. You sound different, Emma said during one brief conversation. Are you okay? Is Marcus treating you right? Everything's fine, Sarah lied, very aware that Oliver was listening from the next room. Just adjusting to married life. Sarah, if something's wrong, I have to go. Love you. She hung up before her voice could break. She tried everything to contact the real Marcus. Emailed his assistant from a library computer. The emails bounced back. Tried calling his direct line. Disconnected. She realized with growing horror that Oliver had been planning this for months, maybe years. He'd systematically cut off every avenue of communication. He thinks you abandoned him, Oliver said casually one morning over breakfast. I've been sending him messages from your phone, saying you need space, that you're not sure about the marriage. By the time he gets back to New York, if he even bothers, you won't want him anymore. You're wrong. Am I? You're here with me, aren't you? Playing house, sleeping in my bed. I'm sleeping on the couch, and you know it. Oliver shrugged. Semantics. Sarah was losing hope when Diana appeared. Marcus's executive assistant of 10 years, sharp-eyed and brilliant. They encountered each other at a company event Oliver was forced to attend. Sarah was standing alone while Oliver networked when Diana approached with 2 glasses of wine. You look like you need this, Diana said. Thank you. Diana lowered her voice. Can I ask you something personal? Sarah's heart began to pound. Sure. How long has Marcus been left-handed? Sarah's breath caught. What? He's been signing everything with his left hand for 3 weeks. Marcus is right-handed, extremely right-handed. He broke his left wrist as a kid and never regained full dexterity. Diana's eyes were sharp. So I'll ask again. Who is that man? Sarah's eyes filled with tears. His twin brother, Oliver. Where's Marcus? I don't know. Oliver drugged him the morning of the wedding, made him miss the ceremony. I think he's still in Singapore, but I can't reach him. Oliver's blocked everything. The words tumbled out in a desperate rush. He's threatening to destroy Marcus financially if I don't play along. He has access to everything. I don't know what to do. Diana set down her wine glass, her expression hardening. Well, it's a good thing you have me now, because I've worked for Marcus Miller for a decade, and nobody messes with my boss. She pulled out her phone. I have connections in Singapore. Give me 24 hours. For the first time in weeks, Sarah felt a spark of hope. Diana worked fast. Within 18 hours, she'd tracked Marcus to a private psychiatric hospital outside Singapore. He'd been admitted under a false name 3 weeks earlier by someone claiming to be his brother, citing exhaustion and mental breakdown. The hospital staff, respecting patient privacy and family wishes, had kept him sedated and isolated. "We need to get him out," Diana said over the phone. Sarah was locked in the bathroom, running water to mask her voice. "But we need to be smart about this. If Oliver suspects anything, he'll run with the money. What do we do? Can you get away? Tell Oliver you need a girls' weekend, spa trip, something." Sarah thought quickly. "He might buy it. He's been wanting me to seem normal to my friends." "Good. Book a trip to Canyon Ranch. Make sure he sees the reservation. Then we fly to Singapore instead." The plan worked. Oliver was suspicious, but ultimately approved. "Don't do anything stupid," he warned. "I'm tracking your phone." "I know," Sarah said. She'd long since accepted total surveillance. She left the phone in her hotel room in Arizona and flew to Singapore with Diana on a red-eye, using cash Diana had carefully hidden away. Landing in Singapore felt surreal. She was exhausted, terrified, running on adrenaline and desperation. The hospital was exclusive, discreet, expensive. Diana had called ahead, claiming to be Marcus's lawyer with power of attorney. They'd prepared documents, forged signatures, anything to get him released. When Sarah finally saw him, she almost collapsed. Marcus was thin, pale, confused. He'd been sedated for weeks, told he was having a breakdown, that his family was taking care of him. They'd shown him fake messages from Sarah saying she needed space, that the wedding was a mistake. "You're here," he said, his voice broken. "You're really here." "I'm here." Sarah took his hands, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I couldn't find you sooner. I thought you left me. I thought—" His voice cracked. "What happened? Why can't I remember the wedding?" Diana stepped forward. "Because you weren't at the wedding, Marcus. Your brother was." Confusion, then understanding, then fury crossed his face. "Oliver. He drugged you, made you miss the ceremony, married Sarah himself." Diana handed him a tablet with evidence, photos, bank records, hospital documents. "He's been draining your accounts for weeks." Marcus's hands shook as he scrolled through the information. He actually did it. After all these years, he looked at Sarah. "I'm so sorry. I should have warned you. I should have told you how dangerous he is." "We're going to fix this," Sarah said firmly. "All of us together." They flew back to New York that night. Marcus was weak but determined, fueled by rage and betrayal. On the plane, he told them everything about his relationship with Oliver, the years of competition, the manipulation, the way Oliver had always needed to win, to control, to dominate. "He can't stand being second," Marcus said. "Even as kids, everything was a contest. Who got better grades, who was more athletic, who our parents loved more. When I succeeded without him, it broke something in him." "Did you love him?" Sarah asked quietly. Marcus was silent for a long moment. "He's my brother. Part of me will always love him. But I had to save myself. Being around him was like drowning slowly." They arrived in New York at dawn. Diana had called ahead to the police, providing evidence of fraud, identity theft, and false imprisonment. A detective agreed to meet them at the penthouse. Oliver was home when they arrived. He was in Marcus's study, wearing Marcus's watch, sitting in Marcus's chair. He looked up when they walked in, and for just a moment, genuine shock crossed his face. Then he smiled. "Well, this is unexpected." "It's over, Oliver," Marcus said, his voice steady despite everything. "The police are on their way." "You think the police matter? I've moved the money. 18 different accounts in 7 countries. You'll never find it all." Oliver stood, buttoning his jacket. "I was always smarter than you, Marcus. You just had better luck." This wasn't about being smart. It was about being ruthless. Marcus stepped closer to his twin. They were mirror images, identical except for the expressions on their faces. One exhausted and sad. One defiant and cold. "Why, Oliver? Why couldn't you just let me go?" Because you took everything from me. Oliver's composure finally shattered. I gave you everything, money, connections, belief when no one else believed, and you threw me away like I was nothing, like I didn't matter. I offered you a partnership, equal partnership. You wanted to own me. I wanted what I deserved. You wanted control. Marcus's voice was sad. That's all you ever wanted. Not success, not family, control. The police arrived before Oliver could respond. He went quietly in the end, that cold smile back on his face. This isn't over, he said as they handcuffed him. You know it's not over. Marcus didn't respond. He just watched as his twin brother was led away, something broken and relieved in his expression. The next few weeks were a blur of lawyers and accountants and headlines. The tabloids had a field day. Billionaire twin switch. Wrong groom at wedding. Sarah stopped reading the news. The marriage to Oliver was annulled. Fraud meant no valid consent. Most of Marcus's money was recovered, though Oliver had successfully hidden several million. He was charged with identity theft, fraud, and false imprisonment. His trial was set for 6 months out. Marcus sold the penthouse immediately. Too many bad memories, he said. Too many ghosts. He bought a smaller apartment in Brooklyn, something normal and quiet and far from his old life. He and Sarah separated by mutual agreement. Not a breakup exactly, more like a pause. They needed time to figure out who they were outside the trauma and fairy tale and nightmare. I don't know who you fell in love with, Marcus said the day they decided. They were sitting in a coffee shop, just two people trying to figure out the truth. Was it me, or some fantasy you needed? I don't know either, Sarah admitted. I loved who I thought you were, but I don't actually know you, not really. And you married my brother. He said it without accusation, just fact. I married a monster wearing your face. Sarah reached across the table, took his hand. But that wasn't your fault, and it wasn't mine. We were both victims. So what now? Now we start over, slowly, honestly. No private jets or grand gestures, just coffee and conversation and truth. Marcus smiled for the first time in weeks. I'd like that. They dated for 6 months like normal people. Coffee dates and movie nights and long walks through Prospect Park. They talked about everything. Their childhoods, their fears, their dreams. The ways they'd both been naive and damaged and hopeful. Sarah returned to her gallery, which Marcus supported as an investor, but not a controller. She curated an exhibition on identity and twins and perception that got written up in the Times. Marcus started therapy, working through decades of complicated family trauma. Emma approved. This is better, she said, watching Marcus and Sarah laugh over dinner one night. This is real. When Marcus proposed the second time, it was in Sarah's tiny apartment, no ring, just him on his knee with tears in his eyes saying, I want to marry you, the real you, not some fantasy. And I want you to marry the real me, messy and broken and trying. Will you? She said yes. The second wedding was small, 20 people in a community garden in Brooklyn. Sarah wore a simple dress from a vintage shop. Marcus wore a suit off the rack. Emma was her maid of honor. Diana was there, smiling proudly. No extravagance, no statement. Just two people who'd survived a nightmare and chosen each other anyway. During the vows, Sarah's voice was steady. I married the wrong man once. I was swept away by fantasy and romance and the idea of being saved. Today, I'm choosing you. The real you, flawed and complicated and worth it. Marcus's vows were simple. I promise to earn your trust every single day. I promise to be honest even when it's hard. I promise to be the man you think I am, and to forgive myself when I fall short. They kissed, and this time it felt right. Not desperate or possessive or performative. Just two people who'd found each other in the ruins and decided to build something real. The reception was in a neighborhood restaurant. They danced to music from someone's phone. They ate cake from a local bakery. It was perfect because it was theirs. Later, standing on the rooftop of her apartment building watching the sunset, Marcus held her close. Are you happy? He asked. I am, Sarah said, and meant it. Are you? I'm terrified and happy and grateful. He paused. Diana told me Oliver's trial starts next month. Are you going to testify? I have to. He hurt you. He hurt me. There have to be consequences. Will you forgive him, eventually? Marcus was quiet for a long time. I don't know. Part of me still loves him. We shared a womb, a childhood, a face. How do you stop loving someone who's literally your other half? Sarah thought about Oliver's cold smile, his calculated cruelty, the weeks of terror she'd endured, but she also thought about Marcus's sad eyes when he talked about his brother, about the 5-year estrangement that had preceded all this, about two boys who'd loved each other once, before ambition and resentment poisoned everything. I think, she said slowly, that love and forgiveness aren't the same thing. You can love someone and still hold them accountable. You can grieve who they might have been while accepting who they are. When did you get so wise? Around the time I married the wrong twin and lived to tell about it. Marcus laughed, and then they were both laughing, giddy with survival and relief and the impossible grace of second chances. 6 months later, Oliver was convicted, sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. Marcus attended the sentencing. Sarah didn't. She'd said everything she needed to say in her victim impact statement. The night after the sentencing, Marcus came home quiet and sad. Sarah held him while he cried for the brother he'd lost twice, once to estrangement, once to prison. She didn't tell him it would be okay. She just held him while he grieved. If you enjoyed this story, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more incredible true stories. Your support means everything. A year after their second wedding, Sarah discovered she was pregnant. She told Marcus over breakfast in their small apartment with mismatched furniture and morning light streaming through cheap curtains. No grand gesture, just life, happening to people who'd survived the unthinkable. "We're having a baby," she said. Marcus stared at her, then started laughing and crying at the same time. "We're going to be parents, us, after everything, Sarah agreed. That night, lying in bed with Marcus's hand on her still flat stomach, Sarah thought about twins, about identical faces hiding different souls, about how the same genetics could produce both monster and man, about nature versus nurture and choice versus destiny. "If it's twins," Marcus said quietly as if reading her mind, "we'll make sure they know they're individuals, that they don't have to compete, that there's enough love for both." "It won't be twins," Sarah said. "How do you know?" "I just do. Call it mother's intuition." She was right. They had a daughter. One perfect singular daughter with Marcus's eyes and Sarah's smile, and a future unwritten by anyone but herself. On their daughter's first birthday, Marcus received a letter from prison. From Oliver. Sarah watched her. Husband read it, his face cycling through emotions too complex to name. "What does it say?" she asked. Marcus folded the letter carefully. "He says he's sorry, that he's in therapy, that he hopes someday I'll bring my daughter to meet her uncle." "Will you?" "I don't know." Marcus looked at their daughter, playing with blocks on the floor. "Part of me wants to protect her from him forever. Part of me thinks everyone deserves a chance at redemption." He turned to Sarah. "What do you think?" And Sarah, holding the hand of the man she'd chosen twice, watching their daughter laugh at absolutely nothing the way babies do, considered the question. About forgiveness and safety. About second chances and hard boundaries. About whether people can truly change, or if we just get better at seeing who they've always been. But she didn't answer. Because some questions don't have easy answers, some wounds take lifetimes to heal, and sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit you don't know. So, she squeezed Marcus's hand and said, "Let's figure it out together, whatever we decide." And in that small apartment in Brooklyn, with a reformed billionaire and his twice-married wife and their innocent daughter, the future remained beautifully, terrifyingly uncertain. Here's the question that haunts Sarah still, the one she asks herself late at night when everyone else is sleeping. If someone takes your life, your identity, your choices, but you survive and build something better from the ruins, were they a villain who destroyed you, or a catalyst who freed you from a fantasy you needed to outgrow? And does it matter, in the end, which one they were?